Okay. Okay, so welcome. We've got some participants filing in. Good morning. It's Sue from Wellington, New Zealand again. Welcome. Wow, more from New Zealand, Maine, Texas, Connecticut, Virginia, England again, Australia, Seattle, Worcester, Hawaii, Utah, Florida, New York, Ohio, England. Everyone's just funneling in. Leeds, the UK, Texas, Colorado, Massachusetts, Maryland. Well, welcome everybody. Exciting to have you here. It's a new week. Another webinar, RootsMagic webinar. And this week we are talking about sources, citations, and documentation. So this is a great topic. It's one that we've had a lot of requests and a lot of questions about. So we are actually looking forward to doing this one and showing you some of the cool new ways to work with sources in RootsMagic 8. And again, my name is Michael Booth, and I'm one of the developers. And with me is Bruce Busby, the Roots Magician himself. And I will now turn the time over to him.
Okay, well, let me go ahead and share my screen here. Hopefully this time it works. We had a little trouble last time. Is everybody seeing the screen okay, right? Okay.
Looks great.
Okay. Yeah, so we're going to be talking about sources, citation, documentation. Now, there are going to be things in sources and citations that work very similar to the way they did in previous versions of RootsMagic. And there's other things that are quite a bit different. And so we'll go over all of those. There's really two main places that you work with sources and citations from within RootsMagic. One is from what you might call the master source list. That's the place where you're working pretty much exclusively with sources. And the second is when you're working on a person on their edit screen. And so we're going to cover both of those. So the first thing we're going to do is we're going to hop in to the sources page. And right over here on the left-hand side, that's one of our new pages, the sources page. And when you bring this up, what you're seeing is a list of all the master sources in your database. Okay, so a quick kind of overview. Sources, citations, for those who aren't familiar with that terminology, a source is going to be the actual record, the Bible, the book, the certificate, the piece of information that you are using to document your information. Now, it doesn't have to be something like a book or a Bible. It can be just a piece of paper that somebody wrote something on. A source can be anything that gives you information about a person in your database, a person or a family in your file. Now, it might only say, so-and-so's real name is blah. It might be a piece of paper that says that. And that's a source. Is it a good source? I don't know. It may be. It kind of depends on who wrote that piece of paper, who wrote that down. So there are good sources, there's bad sources, but what you want to do is you want to keep track of all of your sources, whether they're good or bad. You want to keep track of them. Okay, so that's a source, and that's what this list here on the left-hand side is. This is a list of any sources of information that I may have entered information for. Okay. The second thing is what's called citations. Now, a citation is when you take information from a source, specific information from a source, and kind of extract that out. And that is information that's specific to the use to document a specific piece of information. So for example, a source might be a book, the Book of Smiths. It might be a 300-page book. Well, that book is going to have information about potentially hundreds of people. Okay, but that's your source, and your source is going to be information about that specific source. Your citation is going to be an extract or a piece of that book, a page in that book, for example, that mentions specific people. And the citation is what you use to attach to a fact in your database. So in other words, if you have a book and on page 100 of that book, it says that John Smith was born in New York, well, that book is your source, but your citation is going to be information about that source plus page number, whatever says this. And you're going to attach that citation to that birth. Okay, now, one of the things that's new in RootsMagic 8 is that citations are reusable. Now, sources, these master sources that you see right here, these have always been reusable in every version of RootsMagic going back to version 1. Those have always been reusable. But in the past, when you had a citation, you had to write that page 100 separately for every person that was mentioned in that page. So if you had 15 people mentioned on that page, you had to write 15 different citations. Now you can create one citation, say page 15, and reuse that citation for as many people or facts as you need to. So let's just kind of jump right into here. As I mentioned, this is my list of my master sources. Now I can filter this if I want to come up to the little search box right here. For example, if I typed in, let's say 1940, it's going to filter my list to sources that contain 1940. So I can filter based on anything that I happen to have in my source there. If I click the little X, that clears it back out, and I'm viewing my whole list of sources. If I want to add a new source, I can do that from here. I can just click the little plus sign and I can add my source right here. So the first thing that I'm going to enter is going to be the source type. Now in RootsMagic, there are two main types of sources. There are what are called free-form sources. And if I select a free-form source, it's going to let me enter a footnote, a bibliography, and a short footnote directly. In other words, I need to know what that source is going to look like. So for example, I'm going to go ahead and say a free-form source, and it's going to come up here, and I'll give it a source name. Every source has a source name. That's basically what you see in the list. That's really the only place the source name is used. It's not really printed in your reports when it prints the sources for information. It's just a way to be able to quickly find a source. So you can put that source name however you want, whatever you want. Okay, on a free-form source though, you can enter your footnote, you can enter a short footnote, and you can enter a bibliography. You can also enter source text. This is going to be text that's directly in the source, and you can enter any comments. This could be a comment like, this is the only book of this type in existence, or the book's in terrible shape, or any comment you have about the source itself. Okay, and if you want to give your source a reference number, you can do that as well. And as you enter the source, it's going to kind of show you kind of what the footnote's going to look like. Like I say, for a free-form source, you have to know what you're going to be doing. Okay, on the other hand, if you wanted to add a templated source, what you can do is select any of these templates. That's what these are basically. Selecting a source type. These are source templates, and you can select the type you want. So let's say you happen to have a Bible. Well, I can come over here and search for Bible, and it'll show me I have Bible records, family Bible record, family Bible private. And as I select any one of these, over here on the right, it's going to show me information about that. It's going to show me where it came from. And this is pretty cryptic. If you see E exclamation mark, that means it's from the book Evidence. If you see EE, that's going to be the book Evidence Explained. If you see CYS, that's going to be from Cite Your Sources, and it shows you. So it shows you basically which document or which book about sources it comes from. You'll notice in this case, I actually have a star in front of one of them, and that's because I'm going to go ahead and close this right here. You can see that I have stars in front of some of these, and that's because I've made them favorites. And so if there is a source type that you use a lot, you can make it a favorite so you don't have to drag through here. So let's say I want to make US Census, let's find a US Census US Federal Online Images. This would be, for example, if you got a census record off of Ancestry. That's what you'd want. Well, if you do that a lot, just highlight it and click the little asterisk, and that's going to make it a favorite. And what's nice is from then on, if I hop out of here, if I say I want to add a new source, instead of dragging through this to find the one I want, I just click on favorites, and here's ones that I've actually added as favorites. And I can clear those if I want. But let's say I wanted to add a Bible record. I'm going to click on Bible record, and this is the way you enter a source using templates. As I mentioned, freeform, you get to enter the footnote and the short footnote and the bibliography all manually. You have to know exactly what format they should be or what format you want. Here, I just fill in the blanks. So this might be the Smith Family Bible. And so that's what I'm going to call this source. So that's what's going to show up in the source list from now on. I can go change that later if I want. So just enter whatever you want. The original owner. Okay, so the original owner was John Smith. The title of the Bible was Smith Family Bible. The subtitle, King James Version, whatever. The edition, well, actually, this is where you would put that. But as you can see, you just the published place. We'll just use that. Baltimore, Maryland. The name of the publisher, Jones Publishing. The date it was published. Let's say it was published in 1895. But as you can see, as you fill in the blanks, it shows you what the footnote, what the short footnote, and what the bibliography are going to look like. Once you're happy with your source, you can click OK, and you now have this new source, Smith Family Bible. And again, just like with any of the other existing sources, you can come over here and you can edit that. You can make any changes to that you want, except you can't change the source type. But you can change the source name, the family, any of those fields right there. And as you scroll down, you'll see you can also enter some other information besides just the source, text, comment, and reference. If you want to add media, if you want to add pictures of the source, you can do that. If you want to add a repository, you want to tell where that Bible is. If it's in your house, your address would be a repository. If it's in a library, you'd put that library as a repository. And you can have multiple repositories. So if there's multiple copies of this book and you have one at home and there's also one in a library, you can go in there and add 2 repositories. It'll show you right there how many there are. You can also add web tags. You can also add web tags for the source. That's links to a website. So if a copy of this book happens to be online, you can do that too. You can go in and click on web tags and add a web tag and say, here's the name Smith Family Bible and the URL, put that full URL, and that will add that to your web tags, and it'll show up. It'll show up right there so that you can actually have a link to the copy of the Family Bible that's up online as well. And used is going to show you how many places this source is used. Obviously, I just created this source, so it's not used anywhere at all. Okay, so I'm going to come up here and I'm going to pick one of these. I'm going to pick an existing one. I'm going to do Miller Miller Family Bible. That's the one I want right there. Okay, so I have selected this Miller Family Bible. Now, in this case, you might notice that these titles have the word book. That's just something you can do if you want. As I mentioned, the only place that the source title or the source name gets used is in this list. So if you want all of your books grouped together, you can do that. You can say book colon and then the name of the book, and that way all your books are grouped together rather than scattered throughout. Same thing if you have census records. It's just a way of grouping things together if you want, but it's totally up to you how you want to do that. So I'm going to go ahead and select this Miller Family Bible, and like I say, over here I can see all the fields that make it up. And as I scroll down, I can see that I have a repository, for example. And so I can click on that repository and I can see what the repository is. I can click on that repository to see it and edit that if I need to, or I can add more repositories right there as well. Now, one thing I want to point out, and this is kind of confusing some people, you'll see that when I have this source highlighted, that over here, it shows me that this source is used in 66 different places. And if I click on that, it's going to show me all 66 places, the event, whatever, that is using this particular source. But you'll notice right here, it says there's only 32 citations. And that's what I was referring to before about citations being reusable. So if I want to see the citations for this source, I just click on that little citation count and the number of citations will slide in. And so here's those whatever the number was, 30 something citations. And you can see this one's used in by two places, 2, 2, 3, and so on. You know, if I select one of these, you know, it shows that this particular citation is used in 3 places, and you'll see that right there. So the citation is used in 3 places. If I click on that, I can see the 3 places this specific citation. So Emma, her personal source, her birth source, and her death source, they're all used by Emma, and those would all appear in back here in the main source. They are part of this 66 usages of this source. Okay. Now, when I'm editing those citations, when I've highlighted one of those citations, if I want to edit that, I can come right over here, and any piece of information that's specific to this citation, I can edit those as well. Now, one thing that's new in RootsMagic 8 is what's called the citation name. And the citation name, we added it in 8 because of the fact that we allow you to reuse citations. So since we can reuse citations and have a list of citations, we needed to have something that you can put in there. Now, by default, RootsMagic will take the various fields and append them together to create a citation name. But you don't have to stay with that name. I mean, if you want to, you can, but you can come in here and you can edit this. So you can say Emma Miller's Bible entry. So that can be your citation name. You can enter that and click the save, and now it's saved. So now her citation, instead of being all of these fields appended to each other, it basically becomes something that maybe means more to you. Again, you can also enter research notes or comments about this citation, or if you give your citations reference numbers, you can do that as well. Media, if you've scanned an image, if you've scanned that page that her entry is on, you can attach a copy of that picture to the citation itself. Web tags, that works just the same way as source web tags, except it's a specific citation. And then how many places the citation's used. Now, another thing that's new in RootsMagic 8 that's really nice is in RootsMagic 8, when you created a citation, when you added a source and then you added a citation, you filled in all those blanks, you know, the Bible name, the whatever, and RootsMagic created the citation for you. It created the footnote, it created the short footnote, and it created the bibliography based on that source template. In other words, it took that source template and said, well, here's how the fields go together. Here's the punctuation between them. And it created that entry for you, that footnote for you. Problem is sometimes you might not have a particular field. And so your footnote might have a kind of a stray comma or quotes with nothing in them. It might have something because you didn't have that particular piece of information. Well, in RootsMagic 7, you were stuck with that. You were stuck with it because basically your option was either to do free form, where you wrote it completely out by yourself, or to use a template where you basically were at the mercy of however that template put it together. Well, in RootsMagic 8, we've extended that. So even if you use templates, right here, when you're looking at the footnote, let me drag this up so you can see a little bit more. This footnote, short footnote, and bibliography were put together by the source template. But if there was something in there I wanted to add or delete or change, I can now click customize, and I can customize that footnote, that short footnote, and that bibliography. So if I needed to add something to that footnote, I can go in there and customize that and click OK, and my footnote is now saved just like this. It's saved with that. It's saved with that information right there.
While we're here, we've had a couple of questions. What's the difference between the footnote, short footnote, and bibliography?
Okay. The footnote is going to be the footnote is going to be the thing that prints when you're referencing a source. So let's say you do a narrative report. Let's say you do a book, and it says John Smith was born in this date in this place. Well, if you added any sources to that birth, it's going to put a little superscript number up there. It's going to say right at the end of the sentence, it's going to put a little superscript of 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, whatever, that refers to the footnote. Now, the footnote can actually be in one of two places. It can be an actual footnote, which means it's at the foot of the page. So in other words, the page that says John Doe was born on this date and has a 2, you look at the bottom of the page, and at the bottom of the page, it will say 2, and then it will have this footnote, whatever footnote you have. Okay. It can also be what's called an end note. And that's useful if you have a zillion footnotes, if you have a zillion sources, because if you've got a lot of sources, what can happen is it can write like 3 inches of narrative report and then have like 7 inches of footnotes. So what you can do is you can say, I want end notes instead. And so it just puts all the narrative report going. And then those numbers refer to what are called end notes that are at the end of the document. So at the end of the document, it has your 1, 2, 3, 4, instead of trying to put them at the bottom of each page. Okay, that's the footnote. The short footnote is what will print the second, third, fourth time that particular source is referenced. So the first time, it's going to have the little 1 with all of this information. The second time, it's going to have the reference number, but instead of repeating all of this again, it's going to put this little short version of that. Okay, a bibliography is a little bit different. A bibliography is going to be, if you don't want the source to be referenced every time it's used. So let's say for example, you have a source and you've used it 50 times in this one narrative report, this one book, it would show up 50 times. Well, rather than print it out 50 times at the bottom of 50 different pages or at the end in 50 different items, you can say, I just want a bibliography. And all that does is gives you a list of the sources that you referenced. There's no little footnote numbers. So there's no numbers. So whenever a source is is used for a particular piece of information, it adds it to the bibliography at the end. And the bibliography is printed alphabetically. And so your bibliography usually is last name, comma, first name, or it's a place in reverse order. So that things sort good alphabetically. So that's kind of what the difference between those three items are. Okay, so as I say, if I want to customize one of these footnotes or the short footnote or the bibliography, I just go in there and customize it. And if I save it, it stays saved. The customization stays saved. But if I get to a point where I'm like, oh, I just want it back to the template version of it, I just come down here and click on this reset to defaults. And that uses the template and regenerates the footnote, the short footnote, and the bibliography. It just resets them back to the templated version of the source. Okay. If I want to delete a source, if there's a source in here that I don't want, I just click the little delete button and it lets me delete that. One thing I want to show you on the editing sources versus editing citations. So when I'm editing a source, so when I come in here and I do this Miller Family Bible, the fields that I am allowed to change are the fields for the source only, okay? And anything I change in here is going to affect any of those citations. Those 32 citations, any fields that I change in here are going to change those 32 citations if I haven't customized them. If I've customized them, then changes I make here are not going to affect the ones that you've customized. But the ones that are just naturally built based on the fields from the source and the citation details, those will be changed if I make any changes here. Okay, now if I go into the citation though, if I go into the citations and I pick one of the citations, you'll notice that the field that it really wants me to be able to edit are the citation details, the citation name, and there may be more than one field of citation details. A templated source can have 5, 10, however many different fields that are specific to this usage of the source. So for example, a source might be a book, and so your fields for editing a source might be the title of the book, the publisher of the book, and the author of the book. Okay, those three things don't change no matter what that book is used for. Those things don't change. The citation details for a citation using that book would consist of things like the page number. Okay, and the page number is different depending on what you're using it for. If John Smith's birth is on page 100, then John Smith's citation to this source, his page number for that particular citation would be 100. Somebody else's information might be on page 50, and so that's going to be different for each person or each fact you use it for. Again, the source, that's not going to change. No matter how you use that book, the author, the title, and the publisher of that book are not going to change. So that's your master source, the stuff that doesn't change as it's used. And the citation information, the details, is the information that is going to change depending on who or how that source is used, how that citation is used. Now, you'll notice that it does show you, in addition to the things that are editable, it is showing you the master source, and it's showing you that you have master source text, media, whatever. If you want to edit those from here, from the citation screen, I don't recommend it, but if you want to, you can. You just click on that and it opens that up, and there's those same fields that you were able to edit from the master source list. Now, like I say, right here, it makes absolutely no sense to do this because all you have to do is go back to the master source list. The place this is handy is when you're working with a citation from a person's edit screen, which we'll get to in a little bit. But you will be warned, any changes here are going to affect all citations using this source. So it's warning you that if you make changes to these items, that it's going to change it for every citation, not just this citation. Okay, now one last thing on the sources is you have a menu, and each one of the pages within RootsMagic 8, each one of these pages has its own private menu with menu items or commands that work with that particular thing. So anything on here has to do with sources. So if I want to merge two sources, I can click this right here. It's going to, oh, I have to select one. Oh, I did select one. All right, what did it do? Well, that's not good. Okay, I don't know what just happened.
We'll look at the playback afterwards. I guess just Control-Shift-Escape.
Yeah, that's. Okay. Okay, if I go into sources and I click on merge sources, okay, that's, I don't know whether I've got some kind of corruption in here or what I've got. Okay.
In the meantime, yeah, we've had some questions about merging
Okay.
sources and citations, but we've also had some questions about like the freeform, like making a freeform source or converting between a freeform and a non-freeform source. Or
okay, there currently isn't an easy way or an automatic way of converting a freeform source to a freeform source to a templated source. I mean, you basically have to create a new source and then copy and paste the fields from the one to the other. If you want to go from a templated source to freeform source, that's quite a bit easier. It still involves creating a new freeform source, but at that point you can go into right here when you highlight a source. When you highlight the source, you can copy and paste the footnote directly from the templated source. You'd copy it right into the footnote field for that source. Okay, well, I'm not going to push my my luck anymore. So I'm not going to click merge sources because there's something my system right now is not liking about it. I can print sources. That basically just takes me to the source report in RootsMagic. I can delete the highlighted source. I can make a copy of this selected source. So if I have another source that's close to this but not exact, I can click that and it will it'll just make a copy of that source, and then I can go in and edit that source and make the few little changes that I want. Merge all duplicate sources. What that will do is that's kind of automated. The merge sources will bring up a list, let you select a source, and and then select the other source that you want merged into it. Merge duplicate sources will go through and analyze, and any sources you have in this list that are exactly the same as each other, it will automatically merge those for you. And it takes care of things that are linked to it. Merge duplicate citations. Okay, this is new. What this lets you do is if you select this, it will go through the entire database, and any citations that are exactly the same, it will merge those together. Now that's can happen a lot if you import a GEDCOM file, for example, from another program, including older versions of RootsMagic. Any program that doesn't allow you to reuse citations, when you import that file, you might have 15, 20, 100 of the exact same citation that you entered or copied over and over to attach to different people. Well, if you want to merge those all so that you are basically reusing those citations, then select that option. And when you do it, it'll bring up a thing to confirm whether you really want to do that or not. The source template list. Okay, this is where you create source templates, and I'm not going to go into this right here because we can do a whole webinar on this. But this is where the existing source templates are, or you can add and create your own source templates. And like I say, that's a webinar in and of itself. Finally, here's an option: show tasks for the selected source. And what that does is if you select this, RootsMagic is going to jump to the tasks page and show you any tasks that are using that highlighted source that you have there. If there are none, it'll take you to the tasks page, and the task page will be empty where you could add them if you want. Okay, under citations, there's a few options under the citations menu. You can copy, so you can make a copy of a citation. You can add this citation to multiple people. And so what that lets you do is if you want to quickly add this citation to like a family, everybody in a family, you can do that. You can do this. It'll bring up a list of the people in your database, and you just check the ones that you want to add it to, and it'll add that citation to those people. Show tasks for the selected citation. That's kind of the same as showing the tasks for the selected source, except you're looking at citations specifically. And then merge citations. This lets you merge just individual duplicate citations. So if there's two citations that are almost exactly the same, but as far as you're concerned, they are the same, this will let you merge those together. Okay, so are there any questions before we switch over to the edit person screen?
Is there a way, okay, so someone is talking about importing from, they imported from Ancestry. They had a lot of repositories. Is there a way to merge repositories?
Yeah, if you go over here to addresses, if you go to the addresses tab, there's your addresses, and the little building, that's your repository. So here's your repositories. You can go up into this menu, and there's an option, merge all duplicate repositories. And if any duplicate repositories that are exactly the same, like Mike said, if they come from, Ancestry and you're getting a bunch of those, that will go through and merge all those exact duplicate repositories.
And then a couple questions. People, they don't like the default citation name that's given. And like, do I have to go through and edit them one at a time? I guess I would just remind people the citation name isn't that, and the source name aren't that important. They're never actually printed on like when you print the actual, like a narrative report with citation.
Yeah, when you go to a citation, see, like these are page numbers. You need to have a citation name. If you don't have a citation name, what you're going to have is a bunch of blank rows. When you click on citation, these rows will all be completely blank, and you won't have any idea what they are. You'll have to click on each individual one and go over here and see what they are. So you pretty much need to have a citation name. Now, when we import from another program, and that includes RootsMagic 7, programs that didn't or don't allow you to reuse a citation, we could just leave those citation names blank. Or we could call them citation 1, citation 2, citation 3, which is not really any more useful than leaving it blank. So we felt like the most useful information for a citation name that we had to make up would be to use the actual information from those citation detail fields. Okay, so that's the rationale behind that. Like I say, we could have very easily just said, well, that program didn't have citation names, so we won't give you citation names. You would have come to a screen like this that said there's 24 citations and clicked on this list, and this list would have been empty. It would have been blank. And then you would have contacted tech support saying, I don't have any citations. And we'd say, yeah, you actually do have citations. You just got a bunch of blank rows there to click on. And at that point, again, then you'd be entering those citation names that way too. So when we have to make up a citation name based on something that doesn't have a citation name, we had to make some kind of a choice. And so that was a choice we made because it actually gave you the most information on the citation.
So
okay.
Are you getting to like the pasting and reusing citation or?
Well, yeah, I was going to do that.
Okay.
I was going to do that in the, well, I mean, I can show you that. Okay. Citations you can paste. Let me go ahead and go down to this. Let me do this Miller Family Bible. I'm going to go into citations, and let's say I'm working with this citation, and let's say I need to attach this particular citation, Emma, to a number of different places. Well, what I can do is, while this citation's open, and I can do this from here, or I can do it from the person's edit screen, I'm going to come up here and click on this little button right here that says memorize the citation. So anytime I'm looking at a citation, I can memorize it. So I'm going to say memorize that citation. So this citation is now memorized. Okay, so I am now going to go into my people view, and I'll just bring up his screen right here. And when you highlight any piece of information, whether it's like the person, the spouse, the parents, or whether it's an event like birth or marriage, over here underneath the fields for that, you're going to see your fact items. And one of those fact items is your sources. So for example, if I highlight his person row, I have 3 person sources. And if I hover over it, if I just hover over that, it'll do a pop-up. So I can actually see what those sources are right from there. And I can look at what those sources are without even having to go into it. If I want to go into it, I can go ahead and just click that button, and it's going to open up, slide in my 3 citations. So at this point, I can see I'm working on the person because it's highlighted here, and I'm working on that person's citations. And if I want to see all the detail about a particular citation, I just click on the title out here. If I click on this title out here, I can switch between the various citations, and I can see the footnote, the short footnote, the bibliography. I can see all of that information. From here, I can also add another citation to him. So if see these and I'm like, oh, I have another citation I need to add, I can click right here and I can say add a source citation. And I've got different options. When I was working from that source page, my only option was to add a new source, where I picked a source type and then I filled in the fields and so on. With this, since I'm entering a citation, I can actually select an existing source. So if I wanted to select that source on that Miller Family Bible, I can come right here and I can select that Bible, go to next, and at this point, I can now add a new citation if I want. Okay, and these are the source fields. You're not going to want to mess with those. You're going to want to enter your citation details. Again, you can edit the source information if you want, but be aware it's going to change all the citations using that source. So once I've selected or added a source, I can either add a new citation and I give it a citation name and the item and all that information. I can see the details down here, or I can select an existing citation. So this is where if I wanted to, if I was wanting to add Emma Miller's Bible entry, I select that citation and click OK. And I've now added that Miller Family Bible. I now have that citation. And I can go in, slide in, and I can look at it, and I can edit it, and I can enter information about it. I can also choose the quality. Okay, now the quality, when you're editing a citation from the person's edit screen, that's the only place you're going to see the quality. And that's because the quality is going to be different for every single usage of a source or a citation. Okay, so the source, I can choose whether this source is the original source or a derivative. Okay, I can choose whether the information is primary or secondary, or I don't know. And I can choose whether the evidence is direct, indirect, and negative. Okay, so a source being original or derivative, okay, if it's the original source as it was written, that's obviously original. If it was something that was transcribed from something, that's going to be a derivative. It's not the original source. It was extracted or derived from something. Information. Is the information primary or secondary? And like I say, this can be different on how it's used. You might have a birth certificate that says this person was born on this date in this place. Okay, well, that's primary information because that information was put there by somebody who was probably at that event or had primary knowledge of that event. On the other hand, if that birth certificate says the father's birthplace was New York, that may be an original source, but it's only secondary information because the father's birthplace is not the primary information on this particular document. Okay, and then the evidence is used to tell how this particular citation or this particular source affects or proves what you're trying to prove. Does it directly prove it? Okay, in other words, if the birth certificate says he was born on this date in this place, that's direct evidence for that person being born on that date in that place. Okay, if you have a source that says he was born in May, not a birth certificate, but maybe you got some kind of a document that says he was born in May of 1900. Okay, that would be more indirect information about being born on May 15th of 1900, because it doesn't directly say he was born May 15th, but it does say May and maybe has the year, maybe it doesn't have the year, but it's indirect information. Negative information is a little tougher. That basically is if you have a source and you expect that source to have a particular piece of information and it doesn't, then that's negative evidence. In other words, I looked at this source that should have had something about this, but it didn't. So maybe that what I'm trying to say is not right because this doesn't even have it. Okay, so that's what negative evidence is right there. Okay, so that basically is, when you're editing your citation, you can come in there and take care of that. Okay, now if I want to delete that citation, I go into that citation and I click the delete button. Do you want to remove it? And it's only removing the citation from this person. It's only removing the link from this person to that citation. It's not deleting the citation itself. Okay, if I wanted a quicker way of adding that particular citation, if you remember, I memorized it. So when I'm right here, I can click on paste. I'm going to click on paste citation. And it says, do you want to paste the following citation? And there's the one I memorized, Emma Miller's Bible entry. Okay. The thing is, right now, there's two ways I can paste, and people get confused. And we're going to be expanding this little description right here so that when you look at this, it makes a little bit more sense. But I'll explain to you what it is. If I say reuse the memorized citation, if I click that, this citation right now if I go in and look at it, you can see that citation is used in multiple places because all I've done is pointed this person to that citation that already existed. I reused that citation. Okay, I'm going to go back in here. I'm going to delete it again. Oh, no, that's not what I wanted to do. Oh, I memorized it. Doesn't matter. It's the same one. So, okay. On the other hand, if I click on paste citation and I choose the option to paste, what it's going to do is instead of just pointing this person's information or this event or this whatever to that existing citation, it's going to make a copy of the citation and point to it. So I'm going to do that. I'm going to say paste a copy. Okay, it looks exactly the same. If I go in here, it's exactly the same. The difference is this citation is only used in one place. It's only used by this one person because I made a completely new copy of that citation and pointed to it. So those are the two options. Do I want to point to the one that already exists, or do I want to make a whole new copy and point to it? Now, the only reason you'd really ever want to make a whole new copy and point to it is if there's something about that citation that's maybe a little bit different. And so you wanted to make a copy, point to it so that you could then go into this copy of it and make the little changes that you wanted to make. Okay, so that's the memorize and paste, and you can memorize any citation. Again, whenever you're looking at the citation, you can memorize it right from there, and then you can use that to paste that citation any place that you need it when you're looking at the list of citations. Okay. Now, everything else having to do with this, as I showed, you could add the citation. We know that there are some people who are more used to the way RootsMagic 7 worked with citations, with sources from the edit screen. They like those multiple windows coming up. And so we put in the ability to support the people who wanted to be able to do that. And I'm going to show you real quickly. This is something we showed in the last webinar on the edit screen. But if I go into settings, and I go into the program settings, there's an option right here called slide in workflow. And normally this is not turned on. Okay, so normally it's going to work exactly the way I showed you just now. But if you turn on this slide in workflow, if you check this, it's going to give you an additional option that you can use when you are working on the edit screen. So when I come up here, okay, as I showed you, if I'm highlighting the person, I can see 4 sources. And if I click on this, it slides it in and shows me those 4 sources. From here, I can click on any of those to edit them. I can add, I can paste, I can do any of those things. And by default, if I were to click on the little source, in the source column, if I were to click on the little icon for the source right here, by default, it would do exactly the same. In other words, if I were to click right here, it would be exactly the same as coming down here and clicking on that. Okay, it's just kind of a shortcut, not having to highlight it, then come down here. You can click that and it slides it in. But with this slide in workflow, it works different. And like I say, some people like it, some people don't, but we put it in there as an option for people to use if they want to, if they feel like they're more familiar with doing it the version 7 way. With this new workflow, if I come here and I click on the source here with that workflow turned on, what you'll see is that instead of leaving this as the edit person and over here showing you the list of sources, what it does is it slides the list of sources in. By doing that, we can show you a little bit more information. We can show you the source name and the citation name. We can show you more information without having to hover. And as you click on any of these, you can see the details of that just like you could over here when I was clicking on the individual ones. But it's just a different option. So I can come over here and I can add a citation. I can delete a citation, works exactly the same way. And then I can memorize and I can paste citations. Like I say, it's the only difference is that it slides it in, can show you a little bit more information, and that as you highlight one of these, you can edit it kind of on the fly without having to have it slide in first. You can do that. The disadvantage here is that it's not as clear what this particular group of citations is for, because since it slides in, it's covering the whatever it is. So like for example, if I'm on the marriage, so my two options, I can go to the marriage, I can click on sources, slide that in, I can see the sources for the marriage, or I can click right here on the sources here and slide that source in and work from that angle. Okay, so two different ways of doing it. You can turn that on and off, whatever you're comfortable with. If you're used to clicking over here, then turning that on is not going to make a big difference. It's only going to really make a difference as to what happens when you click on the icons within the edit list itself. And that affects not just the sources, it also affects the media. Instead of the media sliding in here, media slides in over here. Again, it kind of hides the fact, but choose whichever works best for you. Okay, so that's basically an overview of working with sources and citations. Again, there's a ton of things, that, if you have questions, feel free to ask the questions. We also have our wiki, which has a lot of details up there as well on working with sources and citations. So any questions, Mike?
Couple. So we can merge repositories and sources. Can we merge citations?
Yeah. Yep. When you merge citations, and you'll do that from the source page right here. And what you'll do is, if you go into the citations and select a citation, and then come up here and say merge citations, and it'll ask you which citations you want to merge with them. Now, if you want to just merge everything automatically, all the duplicates automatically, you can do that from the master source list. You have your merge all duplicate sources and merge all duplicate citations. This is actually, some people ask about this. Why is merging duplicate citations out here on the source page instead of the citation page? The reason is because this merges all duplicate citations within the whole file. Whereas if you're on a citation page, you're only looking at the citations for a single source. So this is out here in the master part of the source page because it's merging all duplicate citations within the whole file.
Okay, and then couple questions about media. I think our next webinar will be on places, but I think the one after that will probably be media. So we'll have to go into more detail on media, and that includes using media with your sources when we get to that point. Let's see. Of course, when you import from Ancestry, it does import the sources there. When you do an import from Family Search,
when you do the import from Family Search, it doesn't bring the sources in on the import. It brings all the people and events and stuff, but you go into a person to bring their sources over.
Yeah, the sources, Family Search does sources a little bit differently in their family tree. Let's see. Let's see. I think I'm looking at these. I think you covered most of these sort of questions on sources. So
somebody did ask about MyHeritageFacts. When you add MyHeritageFacts, do citations follow? The answer is no, because currently MyHeritage only has the ability to show us the hints. They do not give us the ability in the API to actually bring the information over. So Family Search and Ancestry, we can bring information over, but with Find My Past and MyHeritage, their APIs don't support letting us actually bring data over from a tree into RootsMagic itself. If they do add that support, we'll look at supporting that.
Yeah. Okay, well, we are actually at the hour mark, so this is probably a good stopping point. But just wanted to thank everyone for joining us for our webinar today. A lot of information covered, definitely dealing with these sources and citations. And we hope you join us next time for our future webinars. And in the meantime, have a great week.
Bye.
Bye.